Hey, what's up guys? Jason Julius here, and in this video, I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that's 4 ways to make a woman orgasm. Now, I've been teaching this for 16 years now, and I would say these are the most consistent ways to give any woman the best orgasms, and it's such an amazing experience as a man to be present with her and watch her experience these amazing levels of orgasm. So, the first thing that I want to bring up, and probably the most obvious, and I would say the fourth one is the most important, so we'll save the best for last, but the first one is stimulating her clitoris. Now, stimulating her clitoris is typically the most common way to give a woman an orgasm. It's typically how a woman masturbates, and maybe the type of stimulation that she's often looking for, if she's used to that or used to using a toy or a vibrator and things of that nature. And you can stimulate her clitoris using your finger, by either directly stimulating the clitoris, which is very sensitive because the clitoris has over twice as many nerve endings in that tiny little area as our entire penis. So as you can imagine, that area is very sensitive. So sometimes it can be a little too much to directly stimulate her clitoris with your finger. So oftentimes just pushing the clitoral hood over the top and stimulating her in a clockwise fashion can actually be very pleasurable and be an amazing way to bring her to orgasm. And one thing to note about a clitoral orgasm is, while it is the most common way women orgasm, typically women can only have one clitoral orgasm, and then the clitoris becomes kind of over-engorged and very sensitive to touch. So it makes it challenging to go back and stimulate it again. So clitoral orgasms are amazing for giving her the first orgasm and making her hyper orgasmic and get into the moment and get into an orgasmic state. Another way you can stimulate it is via oral sex, which I already talk about on this channel. I have a video about oral sex, which has some techniques for directly using your mouth. And then you can also stimulate it during intercourse, which I also have a couple of videos on this channel, including you should check out the one about thrusting techniques for how to use the base of your cock to actually stimulate her clitoris during sex. But that would be one of the places to start out, is by stimulating her clitoris. All right, the second way to bring your woman to an amazing orgasm is to stimulate her G-spot. Now, her G-spot is located inside of her vagina along the front wall. So if she's laying on her back and you insert your finger in about 1.5 knuckles to 2 knuckles in, and you press up on the front wall, you're gonna look for the wrinkled or ridged area compared to the smooth area around it. Now, as she becomes more aroused, the G-spot becomes more pronounced and it becomes a little bit more obvious where it's at. But I'll typically tell guys to pay more attention to how she's reacting to how you're touching her, rather than worrying about if you're in a particular spot by what you're feeling. It's better to look for the feedback of what she's experiencing. You can usually tell by her body language if she's really loving what you're doing, or if she's maybe a little bit bored and wondering why you're poking around where you're poking around. So you can kind of maneuver based on her reaction and watch what she's doing. But it really gives you the opportunity to give her a different type of sensation. And some women are not used to orgasming from vaginal stimulation alone. So the best way to stimulate her G-spot is with your finger, because you can apply a lot more pressure, because your penis can't bend to put that level of pressure on her G-spot. But there are ways that you can obviously aim the head of your penis at her G-spot, but it's not quite the same as giving her a G-spot orgasm using your finger, at least for the first time, or to really get her hyper orgasmic. Now, it's really important that she has a strong PC muscle in order to experience these types of orgasms. So that might be something that you introduce to her, but stimulating her G-spot can give her oftentimes her first vaginal orgasm if she's never had one. But not all women respond to G-spot stimulation, so keep that in mind. But typically, if she doesn't respond to G-spot stimulation, she'll respond to our next one, which is A-spot stimulation. Okay, so what is her A-spot? Well, her A-spot is our third way to bring her to an amazing orgasm. And in my opinion, it might even be a little bit more consistent than the G-spot. Sometimes women will respond to G-spot stimulation, not A-spot stimulation. Some A-spot, not G-spot. Some both. You just really have to watch her body, see how she reacts in her own unique way. But the A-spot is basically the vaginal fornix. So if you go all the way into her vagina and right at the very end is her cervix, which if you are using your finger and you go insert into her, you're gonna feel it. It's gonna feel like cartilage, almost like the tip of a nose. You don't typically wanna stimulate that area because it can be very uncomfortable. There's a very small minority of women who actually really enjoy having their cervix stimulated, but it's typical that it can be a little uncomfortable. So you're going all the way to the back, and there's sort of a rim just before you get to her cervix. And that rim is the vaginal fornix. And these are the muscles that contract during a vaginal orgasm. So if you go all the way in and you do that come here motion, you can oftentimes stimulate those very muscles that give her that amazing shaking, body shaking orgasm. Now, while the G-spot is on the front wall, the vaginal fornix is sensitive all the way around. So it's maybe a little bit less concern if you're right in the middle and you're looking for the smooth area just before that rim. And oftentimes guys will get concerned. They'll be like, well, my fingers are not big enough because it's like, maybe 4 inches inside of her. Well, just go back as far as you can. As long as you're not, poking at her cervix, you can do that pull, come here motion, and you should be able to indirectly, if you're not directly, stimulate that area, and you can still give her an amazing A-spot orgasm. And like I said before, a lot of times women will respond better to this first and then respond to G-spot stimulation afterwards. So it's really just going to depend on. But the amazing thing about G-spot and A-spot stimulation is giving her a vaginal orgasm. You can come back and continue to give her more orgasm after orgasm, because compared to the clitoral orgasm where her clitoris is overly sensitive, it's hard to go back and stimulate. You can stimulate the G-spot, the A-spot over and over again to give her orgasm after orgasm after orgasm. And like I said, the A-spot is sensitive all the way around, so you can even play around with maneuvering your finger down and pulling on the anterior wall of her vagina, and you may be able to give her an orgasm that way as well. Okay, now on to our fourth way to make your woman orgasm and have amazing levels of orgasm. And this is the one that's completely overlooked, yet the most important, and that is guiding her mind to the orgasm. Because most of female orgasms are mental. I would say at least 70% of it is mental over physical, which I think for a lot of us guys, we don't necessarily relate to that because we're looking for the physical, but really being able to guide her mind into the present moment. She needs to have alpha waves going in the mind. It's closer to a meditative state of total surrender, being in the moment. And as a facilitator of orgasm, really trying to, give her the best pleasurable experience possible, being able to be present yourself is super important so that you are permission for her to actually, get into the present moment, but really take the lead and allow her to really surrender herself and trust and respect you. You have to really have a lot of trust and respect from her for her to really want to let herself go, because that level of surrender can almost feel kind of scary. It's not a disempowering state. It's actually one of the most empowering states and powerful states to be able to surrender in any situation. But in a sexual situation, you might be stimulating her G-spot or her A-spot, and she might get close to orgasm and suddenly stop you because it feels scary to go over the edge. I've seen this many times where it can be very challenging for her to let go. It's like you almost get her there and it can feel like, oh my God, why didn't you let go? But you have to empathize that it's almost kind of scary to let go to that level, but she's right there on the cusp of it, ready to let go. And the more you can be present, the more you can take the lead and be permission for her to let herself go. She can get out of her mind, quiet that thinking part of her brain down, and really, just let herself go. You can tell her, babe, I just want you to give yourself to me, like unlike any other time before. Just really relax and just be with me here, and just let her know consciously and unconsciously that it's okay to really let go. And, be patient with her and give her the time to be able to get to that state. Now, if she has a challenging time, or hard, difficult time getting to that state, you can try things like, using a blindfold to kind of stop the logical mind from trying to control everything, because it really does need to quiet down. And so sometimes taking away, the sense of sight can not only be kind of fun, but it actually will bring her more into the moment. And another thing is just remembering to, take your time, give her a lot of foreplay and things like that, because foreplay creates the context. A lot of women, would like a lot of sexy context. It is the same thing as us seeing them visually undress, and us guys are so visual, we're turned on immediately. For her, sometimes it takes a little while, so she needs a little bit of context. And then building up to touch, and then once the touch begins, taking your time so that she can begin to imagine and anticipate what's gonna happen next and engage her mind. That brings her into the presence, the present moment. And then she's gonna respond so much differently when you go to stimulate her had you just rushed into things. And of course, you also wanna be able to last long enough in order for her to, get to that state of mind. So oftentimes with premature ejaculation, she doesn't really have enough time to, get into that present moment. Oftentimes it's taking the time beforehand. Give her an orgasm before sex even begins. She'll be in that orgasmic state mentally, and it'll be beautiful because then she'll be able to orgasm over and over and over again once sex begins. So I hope that gives you something to go with, and those would be my tips for the 4 best ways to make your woman orgasm most consistently. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you visit my blog over at jasonjulius.com for some cool trainings, and I'll see you in the next video.